Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, it's hard to believe that it's been a whole 25 years since his first game. I mean, he's had dozens of video games, numerous TV series, he went toe-to-toe with fucking Mario, and he's inspired countless video games and will continue to for years to come. Also inspired some other weird shit on the internet. And while the quality of his games as of recently is debatable, his legacy is undeniable. I may give Sonic a lot of shit, but deep down I still have a soft spot for him. Now, with a franchise as big and influential as Sonic's is, it's bound to have imitators and copycats. So, in honor of his 25th birthday, I've decided to look at some Sonic games that aren't actually Sonic games. Now, I know I did a similar video in the past, but for the most part that video was dedicated to things like Flash games. So this time, I'm gonna look at some bootlegs. And some other shit.
Well, let's start off with a game on the NES and Famicom called Sonic & Knuckles 5. You know, a lot of these bootleg games have seemingly randomly selected installment numbers tacked onto the titles. I'd really love to know where they're pulling them from. Like, I mean, they ripped the title screen from the original Sonic & Knuckles, so it's not like they're unaware of the source material. So what's with the 5? Or is this just their way of insinuating that this one is just so good that it skips over the other 3? Maybe that's the case. Let's see. Okay. I guess this is an 8-bit demake of the original Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Genesis. But for some reason, it starts you out at Spring Yard Zone, which is normally the 3rd level of the game. Kinda weird. Wow! These controls are bad. Like, I mean, they're really bad. It's not something I can really describe, but Sonic moves just really fucking sloppily. The music also sounds terrible, but surprisingly it doesn't look all that bad. I actually think it looks quite a bit closer to the source material than any of the Sonic games on the Master System or Game Gear. But holy shit, is every other thing in this game just off. Like, for example, when Sonic runs down a slope, he suddenly shifts to like a 40-degree angle and starts running towards the floor. But yet when running up a half-pipe on a vertical slope, he stays completely upright. Oh, and the collision detection just seems like it's fucking playing by its own rules, and coupled with the imprecision of the controls and physics of the game, it's pretty goddamn unplayable. I couldn't even make it past the 2nd stage. You know, it's a shame, because I actually kinda wanted to see how the other stages were recreated in the 8-bit style. Too bad the game is an actual dumpster. Here we go again with the number thing. Wait, is that the fucking Looney Tunes theme song?
Yep.
This one was made by the talented developers over at, Sonic World. Never heard of that dev team before, but at this point I think I'd trust a complete stranger with Sonic's IP before I trust Sonic Team again. I like what they've done with the logo, and I'm sure whatever graphic designer came into work with the brilliant realization that the letter O and Sonic's head share a similar shape got a gold star that day. So it starts off with a world map showing the 5 different levels of the game, and as you can tell, they've covered pretty much all bases in terms of variety and stage setting. Hold on, wait a minute. Mexico? Why Mexico? They gave all these other stages these generic, ambiguous names describing the settings, but then decided to straight up go with Mexico for just this one. Oh, and by the way, you guys haven't had the pleasure of hearing this yet, but the fucking level select music is a Game Boy rendition of the Mexican hat dance. I don't understand. I'm now realizing that once you reach that level, the splash screen must say Mexico Zone. See, that's what the new Sonic games have been missing, Sega. Culture. Take notes. Oh god. Well, this one doesn't control half as bad as the last one, but I found out the hard way that apparently you can't stomp on enemies to kill them, or kill them in general. You just kinda have to avoid them, and the controls are pretty floaty, so it's kind of a huge pain in the ass. You just have to platform your way through the stage while collecting these fucking pizzas or whatever they're supposed to be. There's some other kinda cool platforming elements in it, like these ball platformers with the arrows on them. They basically work like the conveyors in Mega Man or Mario and push you in the direction that they're pointing. I actually don't know what happens when you reach the end of the stages because I couldn't even make it past the first stage. All because of this fucking bee bastard who, no matter what I did, would hit me. The problem is the bee moves fast as shit and you move slow as balls, and since it's one-hit deaths, I game overed and didn't want to go through the whole fucking level all over again. Sorry, bro. Now, this one's a little different. It's called Jurassic Boy 2, and once again, as far as I know, no Jurassic Boy 1 exists. It's an NES and Famicom game that's very blatantly a ripoff of Sonic. This is like, Walmart Sonic. Complete with bootleg enemies and all the cheap enemy placement one might find in Metropolis Zone from Sonic 2. You collect coins instead of rings, and like Sonic, the coins act as sort of a health bar. If you get hit, you lose your coins, and if you get hit while you're out of coins, you die. The game is so badly programmed that when you go through one of these loops with the coins that are clearly set in a sequential path for you to collect them all in one pass, oftentimes you end up somehow missing half the fucking coins. The level assets are an obvious ripoff as well, in the first stage anyway. After that, the whole fast-paced Sonic-style level design takes a back seat for some really clumsy and slow platforming in the second stage, which also happens to be laden with spikes all over the goddamn place. Oh, and by the way, ended up finding out later on that the spikes that hang from the ceiling don't actually fucking do anything. There were even times when I just wanted to purposely die so I didn't have to play anymore, and even then, trying to kill myself was a chore. Every time I'd get hit, I'd just recollect the coins that I dropped. I've never seen a game that just wouldn't let me die when I'm actively trying to lose. A terribly bad game where no matter what, you're stuck. There's no joy and no escape. It's fucking purgatory. Hey, guess what? There's a Game Boy version and it's worse. So imagine the original game, only with a much, much smaller screen. Mind you, nothing's been scaled down. You just have way less room to fucking see. And to make matters worse, they've managed to make the controls go from bad to 100% broken. So you press right on the D-pad and you immediately accelerate from 0 to about 150 miles a fucking hour in like a second. I've gotta say, this one is just utterly unplayable. The NES version was at least semi-tolerable, but this one? Holy shit! I apologize for saying anything bad about the other games now. Well, no, not really. The controls combined with such a limited field of view make it pretty much impossible to avoid anything. It's actually the exact same level design from the NES game too, but for some reason, they decided to add boss fights in this one. I mean, I'm also just assuming there's more than one, because I never actually made it to the second stage. I bounced on top of this asshole like 100 times and he still wouldn't die. And this shit's a lot harder than it looks. I swear, controlling his jumps feel like controlling Super Sonic in Super Smash Bros. Well, if you ever wanted to play a shitty, bagged cereal version of Sonic the Hedgehog on the go, this should fill the void quite nicely. Now this one is probably the worst bootleg of them all. Talk about shitty controls and fucked up collision detection. This one was released back in 2010 for the Wii, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PC, iOS, Android... Wait a minute.
Wait, this one's not a bootleg? It's an official game? Ooh. Oops. Sorry. Now let's move on to a couple ROM hacks. For anyone who's unfamiliar with what a ROM hack is, it's basically a pre-existing game that was taken and then modified. Sometimes it's as simple as a palette swap, but other times people create brand new games with all new levels out of them. A lot of them are really bad, but some of them are actually pretty good, and people go as far as to put them on cartridges to play them on real consoles. It's actually pretty cool. Let's look at a couple.
Alright, so this one is a hack of Wonder Boy and Monster World for the Sega Master System, which in its own right is actually a pretty good game. It basically just replaces the character's sprite with Sonic and changes the main character's name to Sonic.
Monster World was once a peaceful region. Then the peace was shattered by an invading army of monsters. A hedgehog named Sonic vowed to defeat them and make his land peaceful once again. The adventure upon which you're about to embark is related by a dragon, the storyteller. I don't actually know what that means.
This must be where they got the idea for Sonic and the Black Knight. There's not much to say about this hack really, because not much has changed. It's Wonder Boy and Monster World. Weirdly enough though, one thing I noticed is that when you die, your sprite for some reason changes back to the game's original one. Hacks like this just really confused me. What was even the point? Oh well. Let's check out one more. Have you ever wanted to play Sonic Adventure on the N64? Me either. This is a hack of Super Mario 64 that changes Mario's character model to Sonic, and they've recreated the Emerald Coast level from Sonic Adventure inside Mario 64's game engine. It actually took me hours to get this game to run, and when I finally did, well, some shit was a little, off. Can we just pause for a second and appreciate the file select screen music? That's, something I never thought I'd hear in my life. It's actually really hard to figure out how to enter the stage, because there's an invisible warp that brings you to it. I had to pace back and forth for like 3 minutes before I finally stumbled upon it, and when I finally got inside, everything was fucked. It must have been the emulator I was running it on, but it slowed down like crazy. Despite that, I still trekked it through the level. I find it kind of odd that they changed so many things in the game, but then they left the Super Mario enemies around. Anyway, I managed to get the star, and then there really wasn't anything left for me to do. So I drowned myself in the pool. Wait, what? I guess the people who made the hack never thought of what would happen if you died outside the level. So the game just spit me back out into Peach's castle. I went over to the slide level, which ended up running fine, and I picked up the star there. Honestly, I probably could have played through a lot of the game as Sonic, and I was planning on seeing how far I could get without the game crashing. But then I tried to leave the castle, and the game froze. And that is the end of the video because I am out of games. This is quite possibly the worst ending to any video I've ever made. I apologize. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, maybe give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, there's 2 videos right there for you. And if you want to see future videos I upload, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button down there, huh? Yeah? I don't know what this voice is I'm doing. Later.